Vicente, it's so fantastic to have you here to have a little chat about what you do and why it's so important. So, describe what it is that you do and say why it's such a special thing.
Well, I offer very different modalities, and they all focus on one thing. They help people get into the parasympathetic state. The parasympathetic state is a state in your nervous system that allows you to live life the way that you're meant to live life, which is grounded, calm, connected to yourself, easier to connect with others. That's where you are creative. That's where you are more able to heal yourself. Your body is able to heal itself. You're able to solve problems much better. You respond better to life. It's like that's the zone. That's where you really are at your best. So all these different modalities, they work together to help people enter this state a little bit more easily and to stay there longer because we have reached a state in our society where we are very much in the fight or flight state most of the time. And the fight or flight state is useful. It has a purpose, which is to help us deal with danger. But the problem is that the way that we have structured our lives, the way we live our lives today, it doesn't allow us to leave that state. We're always in fight or flight. We're always in hypervigilance. And you see it all the time. I mean, I run every morning, and every time I'm running behind somebody, they look back. They are afraid. They're paying attention, like who's behind me, who's coming to get me, right? So yeah, this is not the way we were meant to live. We were meant to go there when we need to and then come back when the danger is past.
Can you give a few more examples to someone who might be watching this that might help them identify that they are in that fight or flight zone?
Yeah, so usually if you are on that more fight or flight state, you would not be sleeping very well. You would be waking up during the night and you cannot fall back asleep, or you have what's called terminal insomnia, which is you wake up very early and can't fall back asleep. You're very reactive. You respond quickly. You get irritated very quickly. You find it hard to focus, hard to concentrate. After a while of this state, you start to get fatigued. You're tired because your body is like in higher alert all the time. That takes energy. Those are like I think would be some of the main things. And if you stay in this state for a very long time, I have some clients who have then moved to what's called the dorsal state, which is basically when you give up. So it's a little bit more depressed. You lose interest in things. You disconnect yourself from your body. You disconnect yourself from your emotions. That would be like a third state after you've been in sympathetic for a long time.
So, is it likely that someone constantly in fight or flight that they might start having other ailments and other illnesses coming along? And is that something that you've seen a lot of?
Absolutely. And we know that when you are in fight or flight or sympathetic state, your body is producing a lot of cortisol. And cortisol has a great impact on your immune system. So your immune system is down, basically. It's a lot less able to fight anything that it needs to fight. We know that when you have an organ transplant, they give you cortisol to prevent your body from rejecting that organ. So it gives you cortisol to quote unquote tame your immune system. So we know what cortisol does, and that's what's happening when you are in a fight or flight state. So it really affects your health as well.
Mm. And I know that from some learning that I've been doing recently, because I'm going through the perimenopause and all of the joy that that brings, and I know that when that happens for women in the midlife zone, that their ovaries are shutting down and they're stopping from producing the hormones. And then what happens is that that job then becomes the job of the adrenals, which is the one that is predominantly actually producing cortisol. So that means that not only is it then having to ramp up to produce these other hormones that the ovaries aren't producing anymore, but it's actually going to be doing that alongside producing cortisol and these hormones. And therefore, if you've already got exhausted adrenals because you've spent most of your time in fight or flight and dealing with stresses without taking time to go into that relaxation mode, then your adrenals aren't going to be able to produce those hormones that you so desperately need. And if that happens, then you're going to get way more menopausal symptoms. And I cannot tell you, the list of side effects of going through menopause is just incredible. All these poor ladies who are going through menopause, it's just awful. So what is it that you do?
I offer sound healing. I offer different types of meditation, including drumming meditation, moving meditation. I offer two specific types of yoga, yoga nidra and restorative yoga. And I offer this one modality of body work that's called the triple vagal method, that works by touching all the branches of the vagus nerve in your body. And that has three functions, but it does help release chronic stress and trauma from your body and help you go back to that parasympathetic state. I sometimes combine all these things. I add a little ceremony and I make it to a longer retreat, a 3 hour, half a day retreat. If you add a little break or a lunch, then there is, it's most of the day. But what I want to say about women going through menopause, if I may add one thing, is that all these practices, and when you are in the parasympathetic state, you also have a lot more oxytocin in your body. And oxytocin, we say it eats cortisol. So that's another way that it helps. In particular, the modality that I offer, that's called the triple vagal method, it does induce the body to produce oxytocin. And you can see, I mean, as I work on the body, I can see, one of the signs that you're producing oxytocin is salivation. I can see the person salivating as I am working on the body. It's a good antidote to the cortisol that we accumulate in our bodies.
And actually, on that note, one of the quickest way to increase your oxytocin is to have a big cuddle with somebody you love, because instantly the body releases that hormone. And I had no idea actually that it then combats the excess cortisol. So that's really interesting. If you're feeling a bit wired and a bit stressed, just give someone a hug. We all should be hugging more, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I think it was Peter Levine who said stressed out adults need the same thing that young children need, is just to be held and rocked.
And what you were saying there as well about, when you're having an impact on someone because they start salivating. And that thing, isn't it, that when people go into that parasympathetic zone, that's the digestion zone. That's when the stomach starts rumbling. And it's so often why people, when they're having a massage, their stomach starts rumbling, and it's almost embarrassing because you're in this really quiet space and then your stomach is rumbling. It's like, no, that's okay. That's a good thing. That's meant to happen.
Yes.
It's a really good sign, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tell me about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is really interesting, how that's new science is coming out to start to connect the vagus nerve and how it connects with our digestive system, our immunity system, and also our state of being and our state of our mind. Tell me a little bit about your understanding of it all.
Well, I think one of the most interesting things I learned about the vagus nerve recently is that I had always thought that it was the amygdala in the brain. We always call it the smoke alarm of the brain. It's always watching for danger and signaling danger for you to trigger that fight or flight response. It's actually the vagus nerve that first identifies the danger and tells the amygdala there is danger. So it is really the primary component of your body that identifies the danger. So it has a really huge role in the state of your mind and the state of your nervous system, and it's everywhere in your body. It branches out in different parts of your body.
They call it the gut-brain connection, don't they? So back in 2009, I had a neck injury, and the neck injury led to a stroke because of a clot that could, went in my neck and then went to my brain. And after that, I had a huge amount of learning that I went through, because you have what's called post-traumatic growth. So after a period of trauma, you then go through a period of curiosity, needing to find things out, needing to make sense of things, needing to understand your new situation and where you are now. And then you grow and you become more. And my period of post-traumatic growth was to understand why, when I had a stroke, did I suddenly have a reduction in serotonin in my stomach? And how was that having an impact on the brain? So serotonin, which is the happy hormone, which goes to your brain, the building blocks of that hormone are in your stomach, in your gut, before it goes to your brain and it becomes serotonin fully. And I do not claim to be a doctor. I do not claim to be anything. So I know nothing about this other than my own personal experiences, and I'm sharing that. But it's like that whole gut-brain connection, and how the vagus nerve speaks to the brain, and how if your gut is in good health, then it can create those building blocks. So it's fascinating how it is all connected. And like you're saying, just by having an improvement or tweaking your diet and your gut and what you're eating can have immense improvements on your sense of feeling less panicked, less depressed, happier. But one of the things that you mentioned was around sound. You said you do sound baths and things like that. So tell me a bit about that and the connection between sound harmonics and the body, and how the vibration and how it heals.
One of the easiest and the simplest ways is that we know that sound vibrates and the waves have frequencies, right? So, and we also know that we have brain waves, and those waves also have frequencies. And when we are in a stage that's more towards the fight or flight sympathetic state, those waves have a different frequency. So let's call those the fight and flight frequency. When I play the bowls, I am playing a frequency that is not the fight or flight frequency. I am playing the calming frequency. It's a much slower frequency. And that frequency connects with the frequency in your brain and helps your brain waves to slow down. And then as your brain waves slow down, it triggers the relaxation response in your body. You enter a more parasympathetic state. And then you go deeper and deeper to a point that, most people end up with delta waves, which is a sign of deep relaxation. The sounds sync with the waves of the brain and slow them down and help you feel calmer.
Yeah, they say if you're in the delta zone, that's when you can start to solve problems without solving them. So it's like that thing that you've been really stuck on for a long time suddenly becomes clear. It's like you find answers that are always there, but maybe they've been blocked for some reason. And I find that really fascinating. They say as well, some of the most amazing artists and inventors of the Renaissance period, they used to meditate and go into the delta zone to come up with ideas for their art. I mean, it's just incredible, really, that so many people don't do this every day.
I know. I've seen a lot of people having insights, which is what you're saying. A lot of people in that state, they have insights. And it's also the body is brought to that state, which is a lot more prone to heal itself. So it happens in the mind, and it happens, it impacts your body as well.
Because that's what Leonardo da Vinci was supposed to have done, a lot of meditation work to get into that delta zone, that rest zone, which apparently is where he had a lot of visions for the inventions that he then drew in these amazing books that we now see, these inventions that were beyond his time. I mean, him being able to draw helicopters and how they might work, when then no one had heard about helicopters or anything flying. So I think there's so much to gain from getting into that zone. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, where in the world are you?
I am in Toronto, in Canada, and I have a website. It's Karuna meditation.com. they can go there. All the information is there. I'm on Instagram as Gannam, and I post lots of stuff there, lots of sound. So it's a good way to stay in touch.
Well, I know that from my own experience of coming into this world, because mine is as a business coach and working with people like yourself who then share with me their knowledge and inspiration of how we can improve our own existence and our own life, is just a gift, really. It's a real treasure. And I feel like my knowledge is just growing and becoming so much more. So, I'd like to thank you for everything that you do. And I look forward very much to hearing more about your retreats as you start to organize them in the future. Any final thoughts from you to anyone who's watching?
No, just don't be afraid of what you can do.
Thank you so much, Vicente.
Thank you.
Lovely speaking with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. You as well.